Mmm, time for new books. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are too. If you're new to my channel, very warm welcome. If you're an OG, welcome back. I hope everybody's doing very well. How is everybody's reading doing? Mine's going very well. I'm having a really great reading summer. But I'm here today to talk to you about new books that are going to be released in September. I've got some buttes to talk to you about today, but I have to tell you, I was a little put off by how many holiday romances are coming out in September. No shade if that's what you're into. Really no judgment at all. It's just not for me. And I know September is kind of the kickoff for the holiday season. I hate to say that, but it's true. I was just a little put off by just how many holiday romances are coming out in September. But that's not to say I didn't find some good ones for you guys, because I did. I found some ones that I am super excited about, two of which I already have arcs for, so holla! What was that even? So first up on this list is a book by an author that many are very familiar with, and that is William Kent Krueger, and he is coming out with The River We Remember. So I think what really put Krueger on the map was This Tender Land, which I read and I enjoyed, but the first book I read from Krueger was Ordinary Grace, and I absolutely love that. That's my favorite of his so far. I'm also enjoying his Cork O'Connor series. So yeah, he's going to be probably an automatic read for me. And I was really excited that he's coming out with a new standalone in September. This is a historical fiction with a mystery element to it, which is a lot like Ordinary Grace was. This one takes place in 1958 in a small Minnesota town, which his stories usually take place in. The story opens up on Memorial Day. Like I said, it takes place in 1958, so people are kind of coming together to honor soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice in the wars of the past. And it's on this day that the body of a very powerful citizen of the town is found floating in the river, and it's very obviously murder. And it is left to the sheriff, Brody Dern, to investigate this murder. And Brody is a veteran of World War II, and he's still kind of dealing with physical and emotional trauma from his service. And not too long into his investigation, rumors in the town start to swirl that the murder was committed by Noah Bluestone, who is a local Native American, but also a World War II veteran who came back from the war with a Japanese wife. So that's the core of the story, but you're also following different characters. I think you're also following a woman who lost her husband to the war, and she's raising her adolescent son by herself. You have the publisher of a local newspaper. You have an aging deputy. You have a crusading female lawyer. And I think all of these aspects put together is going to make for a really engaging story. You've got two of my favorite genres mixed together, historical fiction and a mystery thriller, taking place in a small town in 1958. You're on the cusp of the 60s. This one I think is really, really going to be good. I'm super excited for it. The River We Remember comes out September 5th. Next up on this list, I mentioned in my mid-year crisis video as one of the new releases that I'm most excited about, and that is Holly by Stephen King. As you OGs may know, I am a huge Stephen King fan, and I really love this character. I'm so glad Stephen King has kind of taken her and run with it. She has featured in five other books by Stephen King. This is really the third in the Holly Gibney series, but series is kind of loosely used here. So Holly Gibney was a character that was first introduced in Mr. Mercedes, and she featured heavily in that trilogy. She started off very, very shy, I think semi-neurodivergent, but she's kind of come out of her shell. She's super smart, and she's an excellent investigator. So in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, she ultimately becomes a detective in the Finders Keepers detective agency. And in the Holly Gibney series, she featured in the book The Outsiders, and then she was also featured in the short story out of If It Bleeds, and now she's got her own story, and I am so excited to get my hands on this. We've got all of the brand new copies in our back store room ready to be released in September, and I can barely keep my hands off of them. In this one, Holly is approached by a woman who wants Holly to find her missing daughter. And Holly is initially reluctant to take the case for personal reasons. I think her partner has COVID, her mother has recently died, but there's something about this woman that compels her to take her case. The further Holly gets involved in this investigation, she learns about this couple that live just a few blocks from where this girl disappeared. And there's something off about this couple. They are an elderly couple, but they're academics. So while they're in their 80s, I think they're former professors. They're well known. They live in this big, respectable house, but they've got something dark and shady and mysterious going on in their basement. And Holly means to get to the bottom of it. And she thinks that this couple have something to do with this girl's disappearance. So the story goes from there, and I am just super excited to read this book. I'm sure there's going to be lots of Easter eggs in it, and I'm just really excited to see how more Holly's character has evolved. And given that she is the center point of this story, she is the headliner, I'm just really excited to see where Stephen King takes her. If I didn't mention before, this is a horror / mystery thriller. Holly comes out September 5th. Next up is Mother-Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon. I always want to say Nina Simone. I just saw this on the shelf and I picked it up. I thought the cover, let me see if I can do it without a glare. I thought the cover was kind of cute. This is a debut novel, so as you know, I'm always excited about debut novels. This is a mystery thriller. So while the cover implies that it is just mother-daughter, we are following actually 3 generations of women, starting with Lana, who is a well-respected businesswoman in the real estate industry in LA, but for reasons, she ends up going on a trip with her adult daughter, Beth, and her teenage granddaughter, Jack. And they go and they spend some time in this bungalow in a small California coastal town. And one day, Jack, the granddaughter, happens to find a dead body while kayaking. And one thing leads to another, and Jack becomes suspect number 1. Another part of the story is that Lana is also battling cancer. And I think that's probably the reason why the 3 of them kind of get together to remove Lana from her high-stress job and get her to relax and help with her recovery. And so when all this happens with a murder investigation, Beth just wants her mom to relax and recover, but Lana wants to prove she's still fierce and independent and still a go-getter, and she wants to do what it takes to help clear Jack of this murder. And so the more these women get involved in the investigation, they are uncovering webs of lies within this community. We have wealthy ranchers versus folksy conservationists. And the more that they're thrown into this chaos of this investigation and learning more about this community that they are really outsiders of, I think this story really has to do with these 3 women coming together and being there for each other. 2 aspects that I really love in a story: a murder mystery, and then you have women and their relationships with each other and how they back each other up. So I'm really excited for this one. I'm so glad I have my hands on an ARC. Not to mention it's a debut novel, so those are always exciting. Mother-Daughter Murder Night comes out September 5th. Next up on this list is Hemlock Island by Kelley Armstrong. I have not heard of this author, however, she has quite an extensive backlist. I think most of the books that she's written in the past have been YA, urban fantasy type books. This is a horror / mystery thriller, so my interest was immediately piqued. So this one follows Lainey Kilpatrick, and she's a young woman who has a cabin on Hemlock Island, and it is her one and only thing that she got after a very messy divorce. But for one reason or another, she rents it out as kind of an Airbnb thing, but some bad things happen, and after her last renters kind of flee after finding nail scratch marks and hex symbols, she goes to kind of investigate to find out what the heck has been going on at her cabin. She brings her teenage niece, but when she gets there, she finds that her ex-husband is there because he finds out the shenanigans that have been going on at the cabin. So he goes also to try to find out what happens, and he shows up with his sister Jayla, who used to be Lainey's best friend, and I'm pretty sure that they're no longer best friends because of the divorce. And then Sadie shows up also. I think she lives locally. She's a high school friend of Lainey's. She hears about what's going on at the cabin, and so she charters over there to find out what's going on, and she shows up with her brother, who is now a cop. So we've got these 6 people at this cabin on this isolated island, and then a dead body shows up. And not only that, but the sole means to get off the island to the mainland has been sabotaged or taken. So what we have now is, I think, an isolation murder mystery with the added aspect of the occult into the mix. So I think this one's going to be an interesting one. We've got multiple relationships. So we've got these histories. There's going to be secrets. There's going to be lies. There's going to be family tension. There's going to be tension between friends who are no longer friends. This one's going to be a good one. And I think it's coming out just in time, of course, for October, where a lot of people like to read spooky reads, myself included. So I'm super excited for this one. Hemlock Island comes out September 12th. Next up is super exciting for me because of who the author is, number one, and again, I have another arc, and that is Rouge by Mona Awad. Of course, Mona Awad wrote Bunny, which, gosh, that book, have you guys read it yet? It is, well, I can't spend too much time even talking about that book, much less thinking about it, because so many feelings about that book, mixed feelings. It was crazy, crazy. But when I saw that Mona Awad was coming out with another one, I snatched it up. What is this one about? This is marketed as a gothic horror. I'm not sure how well I'd be able to synopsize something by this author because she's got some surrealism going on in her books and just delicious weirdness that I don't think I would be able to come up with my own words for. So I'm just going to read the back to you. It says, from the critically acclaimed author of Bunny comes a horror-tinged gothic fairy tale about a lonely dress shop clerk whose mother's unexpected death sends her down a treacherous path in pursuit of youth and beauty. Can she escape her mother's fate and find a connection that is more than skin deep? For as long as she can remember, Belle has been insidiously obsessed with her skin and skincare videos. When her estranged mother, Noelle, mysteriously dies, Belle finds herself back in Southern California, dealing with her mother's considerable debts and grappling with lingering questions about her death. The stakes escalate when a strange woman in red appears at the funeral, offering a tantalizing clue about her mother's demise, followed by a cryptic video about a transformative spa experience. With the help of a pair of red shoes, Belle is lured into the barbed embrace of La Maison des Méduses, the same lavish culty spa to which her mother was devoted. There, Belle discovers the frightening secret behind her and her mother's obsession with the mirror and the great shimmering depths and demons that lurk on the other side of the glass. Snow White meets Eyes Wide Shut in the surreal descent into the dark side of beauty, envy, grief, and the complicated love between mothers and daughters. Yes, please. There's a little blurb on here by Ian Reid, who, of course, wrote I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and a word that he uses in that blurb is unsettling, and that is an excellent way to describe the stories that Mona Awad tells. I'm excited about this one. It takes place in Southern California, which is where I was born and raised. It deals with very relevant issues, which I'm super excited about. And I love a good story about mother-daughter relationships. So this one is right at the top of my TBR. Never said that before. Anyways, Mona Awad's Rouge comes out September 12th. Last book on this list is going to be for you fans of dark academia, and that is This Is How We End Things by R.J. Jacobs. This one takes place on a university campus in a small town in North Carolina. We have a professor, I believe his name is Joe Lyons, and he is running a study with 5 graduate students studying the effects of and the acts of lying. But it turns out the study of lying is not making the 5 students more honest, it's actually making it easier for them to be able to hide behind secrets. During one of the experiments that are being conducted in this group, the test goes awry and one of the students is found dead. And not only is this a dark academia novel, but we also have an isolation murder mystery because they are all trapped in this abandoned campus because of a snowstorm. They have a local investigator with them to solve the crime, and we have 5 suspects who are literally schooled at lying. So we have secrets coming up. We have to figure out who's lying, who's telling the truth, who's the murderer. And I think this one's just going to be a fun one. I haven't read a ton of dark academia, and I have to say I wouldn't call it something that I gravitate towards, but I don't think I've read some of the best academia that's out there. I haven't read The Secret History yet. I haven't read If We Were Villains yet. So I haven't quite decided if I'm a dark academia fan, but the sound of this just sounds super compelling and I am here for it. This Is How We End Things comes out September 12th. So that is it. Those are the books that are coming out in the month of September 2023. Are there any books that you guys are excited for that are coming out in September? I would love to hear about them, or you could just say hi down in the doodly-doo. If you're still watching at this point, please consider giving that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye!